I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please join me as I pray. Again, Father, we're so thankful for the blessings of living in this great county and in this great state and this great country, and the blessings of this day. And as we approach this Thanksgiving season, your word has reminded us that we should in all things give thanks, and we should always be instant to give thanks to the one that created it all. So Father, as we go into this Thanksgiving on Thursday, is we'll not just focus on what we have to eat and the family that we have surrounded us, but we should remember you, who is the source of all of our blessings. And we need to thank you for just allowing us to live in this great county. And we pray for these commissioners who have taken on a difficult job to direct this county. And we just pray you give them your wisdom. Most often knowledge comes from man, but wisdom comes from you. And it takes more than knowledge to run this county. We pray you give them your wisdom, you direct their thoughts down the path that you would have this county go to benefit all the citizens, for it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Welcome everybody here today. We have citizens to be heard. Jutine Bacta.
Commissioner Cheney.
Oh,
Here.
roll call.
Commissioner Casterline.
Here.
Commissioner Russo.
Here.
Commissioner Lawbach.
Here.
Judge Mills.
Jutine.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Jatine Bhakta, 224 Reserve Lane. Just here to clear a few things up. On November 15th at the Aransas County Special Commissioners Court meeting, had been mentioned that EDC member was involved in the dealing of the urgent care building transaction. I would like to clear that up. The current building owner is not an EDC member, nor is the broker that has listed that property. EDC has no way been involved with the micro hospital or the medical facilities being considered. There are no backroom deals being made, as had been referenced by a citizen. There has been several meetings, either of the City of Rockport or Commissioners Court, where EDC's involvement into areas that we have not had any input or acted on in any way. I know a few citizens have reservations about the EDC, but I wanted to make sure to clear up the facts. While I'm on the subject of clearing things up, at a public input session on November 4th on chapter 381 and 311, it was also mentioned by a commissioner that the county should not be in the business of picking winners and losers. I assure you, the only winner here is the citizens of Aransas County. These agreements do not tip the financial scale to make a business profitable. Businesses have to justify success of their venture without abatements. Abatements are short-term relief to satisfy infrastructure needs, hiring of additional workforce, or any other areas of need. As Mr. Meek had pointed out, abatements have a variety of flavors. And if the county decided to minimize their risk, they can be structured to be front-loaded. The developer would front all the costs of the county or the city with reimbursement over time. Thank you. In the season of giving, I want to thank all the commissioners and judge for their leadership. I know over the last few years through all these different circumstances that the county has dealt with, we appreciate your leadership, especially the judge. He's guided us through so many different things that have come up within the county, and I appreciate everything that the commissioners have done as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, presentations, discussion and update on problems with stray bullets in Aransas County. Kevin and Amy Biddle.
First off, can my husband come up and hand y'all, I did
Yes,
a little
ma'am, sure
pictures of bullets.
Can you say your name again and spell it for us? I didn't quite
Amy
catch it.
Biddle, AMY BIDDLE.
Thank you.
Kevin and I are the owners and managers of Coca-Cola Rv Park. We've been established since February of 2015. We have 38 RV pad sites, and we're on 7.5 acres. Since we spoke to y'all last, with the last comment that I made with y'all, we had 2 incidents of bullet strikes. Since then, we've received 2 more. I've collected 2 bullets, have 3 court cases with the sheriff's department. But what I want to start with is just go through each 4 of them that we have and, explain the pictures to you. The first one was on Saturday, July the 17th at 7:19 p.m. I received a text message from one of my renters. At the time, we weren't sure if it was a bullet or if it was fireworks because it was shortly after 4th of July. We looked for firework, remnants, didn't find anything. It wasn't until a few days afterwards that they discovered the dent that you're seeing in the picture on the top of their truck. Still, we thought a firework couldn't quite do that, but, we didn't connect it to a bullet until we received bullet number 2. Bullet number 2 was on Saturday, August the 14th, 5:30 p.m. 2 stray bullets entered our property. One of those bullets was collected and it entered an RV. There was 4 witnesses, one of them being myself. The gentleman that was in this RV, luckily he was in the living room end of his RV and the bullet entered his bedroom part of the RV. It crossed and hit the opposite side of the RV, and the trajectory, if I can get the word right, of that bullet was headed in the direction to where I was sitting and 2 of my other renters that we heard the bullets hitting. But that day we only could trace down the one at that RV. After we thought about the trajectory of that Dodge truck, if you would have lined it up, he's just a little further past where that particular bullet went. And that's when we started thinking that wasn't fireworks. Fireworks can't leave a dent like that. A bullet can.
Yeah, that was a crease in the hood, and it's pretty evident that was.
My next bullet, I do not have a date or time. The bullet, I was out mowing our park, and I happened to be mowing around our dog park, which is a place where we allow our renters to take their dogs off the leash to roam freely, and our residents will be walking around there. This is at the base of the fence. And as I was going by, I saw this bullet lodged in the fence. And I called my husband over and I said, we have another one. This bullet plus bullet number 2 have been collected and the sheriff's department has it. That day, whenever this happened, if someone would have been walking around or dog, might not have been here. The last one that we just received was on Tuesday, November the 9th, between 2:30 and 3 o'clock in the morning. I know that because I was woken to the sound of gunfire. I went outside and stood there for 30 minutes listening to the gunfire that continued to happen in the night. As I'm listening, you can hear bullets traveling, not staying on property. It wasn't until 9 o'clock that morning when I was headed out again mowing, I look up at the RV that you see in that picture, and lo and behold, there we have another bullet hole. Luckily, this particular renter of ours, he comes down on the weekends. He's from San Antonio, and so he was not present and in the RV at the time.
And that deflected off the side of the RV, and he's usually sitting on the porch. We were out fishing that day.
But those are the 4 facts of shots that we have proof of
There's others.
that have entered our property.
Yep.
There's been many other occasions that we have heard bullets flying overhead, but we cannot track it to, the actual where it landed, if it was our property or someone else's property. The steps that we have taken to try to have public safety for all of our renters and ourselves, because we live on this property also. This is our homestead besides the RV park. We've made numerous calls to the sheriff and Texas game wardens. We've asked for a close patrol of our area. 3 case numbers have been filed and 2 bullets have been collected. The sheriff has knocked on some doors. We've talked to several of our neighbors, which we have a few of them here with us that we would love for them to be able to speak to. We've also talked at one of the commissioners' courts during the public comment when we had the first 2 bullet shots. We're very thankful. We noticed over the weekend that the sheriff did put a deal on Chris 6 News in regards to the reckless gunfire in Aransas County. Very thankful for that. And also they did a post on their Facebook page. Also very thankful for that. But still over the weekend in our area, I want to say in the evening through the early morning, you could hear partying and gunfire going on. So I don't know if they didn't watch the news or if they see Facebook or not, but we believe that we as citizens of Aransas County deserve to be safe. And whether if it's citizens or in my case, I have lots of visitors that come to Aransas County. They should be able to live without fear of bullets raining down on them. It's not right. Public safety action is needed before someone is hurt or, heaven forbid, killed.
Amy, let me ask you a question. Does this mainly happen on the weekend?
There's no time.
No time?
There's no time.
I tend to ask y'all that before.
It could be 3 in the morning, it could be 1 in the afternoon, 7 in the morning, Saturday, Monday.
Just all the time.
You said you have cases going on, so I'm assuming you've tracked down to who you think the people are doing at least. Oh, you have?
There's cases from the sheriff's department, but
The last that we have heard, no, they have not. At least they haven't told us.
When you said, when you're talking about coming out the one night and hearing all the fire, nobody drove around trying to find out where they were coming from?
we actually do drive around, but I guess the issue is unless you actually catch them shooting at that particular time in your direction, what can you do?
Do you have any reason to think that the person or people who are shooting know yet, or are they still clueless?
I'd say, well, it's hard to know because I would think if it was me and I was shooting and I knew my bullets had damaged personal property.
Nobody has actually located somebody who's defiant. We just don't know yet what they're thinking.
No,
that would almost be a question for the sheriff's department.
Not that you've heard anyway.
we actually believe some, not all, but some of it is, there could be some shooting in the ponds. There's a lot of ponds from, pits dug.
Maybe.
They fill up and some people don't believe bullets will ricochet off of water. There's YouTube videos to prove that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will argue with you and say they bullets will not ricochet
Some
off
of those
of water.
pictures, I shoot quite a bit, and some of those pictures, those are not just small rifle bullets.
No.
Well, there's some semis that go off in the middle of the night, and a couple of times we've gotten up and drove around to try to figure out where it's come from. We have some ideas, but there's no way to prove it. What?
On the last page, you'll see an aerial of our park, and I have it labeled where the 4 bullets happened, and they all came from the back of our property. Now, beyond that, I can't pinpoint down anything other than I do know my immediate neighbors that back up to me, one of them being here today. I just feel that it's time that, the county needs to act to promote public safety because it's only getting worse instead of better. There is a section 235.022 of the Texas Local Government Code provides that the Commissioner's Court of a county by order may regulate and or prohibit the discharge of firearms on lots that are 10 acres or smaller and which are located in subdivisions which have been plotted and filed for record. I don't know what else can we do as citizens.
We don't know what else to do. We call the sheriff when we feel the need. There's multiple calls.
I definitely would like to have another neighbor that backs up to us.
He's filled out a form. I was gonna call him,
Okay.
or he could come up now if y'all want him to.
Did you guys have?
Amy, can I ask you, what is the blue circle at the lower right?
That's where our house is being built. That's where I live at that time. It's kind of an old photo using Google Maps, but that's where I'm at.
I'd like to thank the court for you guys hearing us.
Yes, and putting us on the agenda, Mr. Cheney.
Maybe we can get a little input from the county attorney's office or.
What I would like to say is that I do not want to encourage anyone to seek out someone who is shooting at your property. That is not something that you should be doing on your own. You should be immediately notifying law enforcement. I understand that you don't want to burden them if no one's hurt, but the only way for them to seek out these people is if they immediately are able to go and look for them. I do not want to encourage anyone to do that themselves.
No, we don't want you guys getting shot while you're driving
Exactly.
around.
We don't want you to get hurt.
I would like to say that what happens sometimes, like I say, there's no specific time or day that this can happen.
Yeah.
So it can happen 2:00 in the afternoon saying, we call the sheriff. By the time the sheriff gets there, they quit shooting. So they're done shooting, so they're just driving around. So it's difficult to actually catch them. But a couple of them have been caught in the years past. In the years we've been here, there has been a few people that have been caught, but they just have to be oblivious to what's going on and not realize, some people just don't need their own guns, but
Yeah, that's right.
you need to practice safe.
We do have the Second Amendment right, but that comes with responsibilities, and those responsibilities are not being followed.
Yeah. One thing I want to make clear in my position is that I very much support the Second Amendment. I very much support people being able to own guns and firearms. However, there is, as you say, a responsibility that is quite large that comes with that. The sheriff and I visited about this, in relation to what y'all are talking about. And I really don't know if there's anything that we can do about it right now, but I am going to contact the legislature and see if there's something they can come up with. If nothing else, if we can't we don't want to reduce anybody's ability to utilize their land. Now, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is if you're utilizing the land, you're disturbing other people, where you could actually be killed or something. The fines need to be such that it would definitely discourage anybody from doing
There
it.
are gun ranges.
Exactly.
There are gun ranges. And as more populated as this area is becoming, it seems to be a growing issue. It's not going to go away.
No.
And this state, Texas statute allows, there's several counties, if you Google it, there's several counties in the last few years that have implemented this order of restricting gunfire on 10 acres or less. It happens. There's several counties that have.
Right.
And I
For
think
this
it'd be
particular reason.
I think it'd be a good idea for us to research some of that, and even since y'all apparently know a general direction where you think that they're coming from, that we hone in on that area, and and hopefully the sheriff's already doing that, and get familiar with the people that own property in there and see
Yeah.
what.
Something I would point out is these guys are already breaking the law. It's not so much
Correct.
that we need.
Crossing the property line.
Right. So, I mean, it's great to look into what new laws we might pass, but what we seem to have here is an investigation and an enforcement issue. And I don't know what a law change is going to do to help us. We'll have to think through what action could we take that would make it easier for us somehow to nail down where this fire is coming from.
I don't know that this is a law that's being passed. If I understand my research,
It's already
the
illegal.
law is there.
Right.
Right.
It's just.
You can't be popping
this
off.
10 acres and less allows the commissioner's court for the sake of public safety.
But the question is, what will we be doing to improve public safety if we haven't done anything to help us find out who these people are?
Well, you would have citizens like us that have already been hit. We would be calling, saying active shooting
Yeah, but
going
you
on.
can already do that.
Right.
Yes, but they come to our place first and they stop.
No, I know. It's awful what's happening. I'm just not sure that the law is going to improve your situation. We need to figure out what we can do that actually helps us
One of the
figure out who these
thing
people are.
that the sheriff mentioned, if they're caught, they said it was just a misdemeanor.
Ah, okay. Well,
Yeah,
all right.
that's what I'm thinking is it needs to be, the legislation needs to allow you to up it significantly.
I don't really know the law, but I would think if you have a bullet going through someone's RV and hitting the opposite wall inside, that's deadly conduct.
I don't know.
If he would
County,
have been in the bedroom, he'd be very.
let's ask the county attorney if she's here. Do you know, Amanda, offhand, can that be more than a misdemeanor?
That's really going to depend on a case-to-case basis about their intent, what level of recklessness they're serving. So I'm not willing to commit to that on an overall basis because that is going to be a case-to-case basis. But the real
Your house.
the real issue is finding the person who did it. Because if we don't know who did it, it doesn't really matter if it's a misdemeanor or a felony at this point. So we need to work on maybe informing all of your neighbors if they're not watching the news, if they're not getting their news elsewhere, if we can get the word out to all of them specifically in a more direct manner.
How do we do that?
That's what we were brainstorming, maybe a mailer, maybe going and giving each individual one's notices of what the law is. Since we're a rather small county, that is a possibility to do on a more individual basis.
Well, we're staunch supporters of the Second Amendment too.
Sure.
Don't get us wrong. I mean.
No, we hear you. Now, the sheriff has done some door knocking. It sounds like we probably need to do more
Well,
thorough door knocking.
this issue is really broader than y'all's trailer park. Cause I mean, over the last 13 years, I've been a commissioner. I probably heard 50 complaints of people with stray bullets and stuff all throughout my precinct. Cause my precinct is primarily agrarian. I mean, it's
imagine how
rural.
productive these guys could be if they weren't called out to stray bullets all the time. I mean, they got other
Well,
things to do.
And I agree. And, we probably need to get with the sheriff and see if there's anything the court can do to help that. But I want to make everybody aware that it's not just y'all's RV park.
We've
It's,
heard.
yeah.
Well, no, we've had the
it's-
same problem in precinct 4, which is, in the northern end is also largely rural. We had shooters in Lamar, which is pretty heavily, populated, but also out over Copano Bay. That was happening often. They managed to catch those guys once and ticket them, and they seem to have backed off. But there again, not a lot happened until we managed to identify the people shooting.
You would think you wouldn't have to do that.
We've been working on that as best we can.
It's not your job. It's
Well,
law enforcement's. We got to figure out how to make that.
Well, it eventually can
Happen.
affect our business and
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot at stake.
Oh, you guys don't have to convince us that this is awful. We're trying to figure out what's an effective way to address it.
even at that, we have damaged property.
Sure.
Renters that I have in the park, and there's no one to handle that, take care of that.
Right.
Damage that was done caused by these stray bullets. And like I said, thank the Lord, no one's been injured yet. I hate for the day that my park's going to be on the news because someone was injured or killed by a stray bullet.
Yep.
This is our livelihood. Not only just from a business aspect, from a personal citizen aspect. It's getting ridiculous.
Mr. Ward, does he want to come up or you like it?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Cool.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity to speak, commissioners. Thank you for hearing us. My name's Stanley Ward. This is my wife, Kimberly Ward. We live on the same block as Kevin and Amy, just on the other side of the block on Adolfo Road. We were also here at the previous meeting where we discussed these concerns that we had. I think at this time, it's fairly obvious what the concerns are, concerns for safety. I will add that since the last meeting, my wife and I have had the unfortunate experience of walking on some of the properties on that block, and we know where the shootings come from. We'll address that in a minute. Question is, what can we do about it? And we have some ideas on that too. But the shooting was, I know they can shoot out there, but obviously they're shooting semi-automatic weapons and they're shooting 30, 40 rounds. The bad part was that where we were sitting on a property, on a little golf cart, and we probably had 10, 15 rounds ricochet on the ground next to us. Of course, in that moment, the first idea is, hey, we need to get out of there. We own property on both sides of Adolfo Road. So we already know more or less where it's coming from. And on that day, I did something about it. And I know that I'll advise us not to do something on our own, but the fact of the matter is that so far, law enforcement has not been able to do anything. Like our neighbors say, these people shoot. By the time law enforcement comes around, sometimes shooting's done. And then the all too often response that we get, which is the same thing, they can't do anything. Without you having enough evidence to literally catch somebody in the act, committing that crime, there's nothing they can do. Yeah, they can talk to him, but that's it. And the people sit there, it wasn't us. There's nothing they can do. Unless you have enough evidence to go to court where you can subpoena some sort of, now you got to subpoena, people want to see their firearms to match it to a bullet. There's nothing we can do, right? And we know it. So this is what it is. It's the same old thing. There's nothing they can do, right? We have a law. The law is real clear. It's already a Class C misdemeanor if the bullet leaves your property line. Second time is Class B though. So there is steps of progression that can be done. But once again, how do you identify these people? What do we do? On that day, and because we've already been told there's nothing we can do, and I hate to say it, but when you get told time and time again by law enforcement that nothing can be done unless you catch it. As citizens, we have an obligation to ourselves, to our families, to our neighbors, to be safe. Yes, we trust law enforcement and we trust the governing authorities to help us with that. But at the end of the day, when nothing can be done, we're put in a situation where we have to do something. I can assure y'all, as an upstanding man, I cannot sit idly and let people who do wrong just do wrong at the detriment of myself, of our neighbors, of good law-abiding citizens. On that day, I knew where the shooting was coming from. I went to my house and I got in my truck and I drove around that side of the block. And I video recorded the gentlemen's coming out of their backyards with AR strapped to their chest. And they're all drinking, sitting down their drinks. I wasn't leaving until sheriffs came there. Of course, I'm calling the sheriffs. I made sure I was on the road because I didn't want to be on their property. Of course, I was hot. Just, how can I not? My wife and I just getting shot at on our own property. But don't worry, the response is pretty much the same. Deputies can't do nothing about it until they catch them in the act. I'm like, hey, I have a video right here. 5 minutes after the shooting stops, guys walking out of the backyard where we know it's coming from. You put their gun, like, officer, look, he's right there. That's him. I tell them the rifle's right there in the trunk of that car right there. They're shooting. I got it on video.
And they told us
So-
we had to have the bullets collected off of our property.
So
to
then,
get to that.
so then we get to the question.
If we went through that effort to identify people, to have something done, and we still get,
Well, nothing can be done. So my question is then, when you go to court,
and there's already grounds for civil lawsuits. Once we have property damage on, there's already ground for civil lawsuits. It's a matter of what can be proven in court. We know that.
and as citizens, we're moving in that direction. We're going to do what we need to protect our rights, to live in this county peacefully.
Heck, we moved out into the county because we thought it's a nice, peaceful place to live. And it still is. I'm not going to be told that because there's a few people out there doing harm, blatant disregard for responsible gun ownership and for our laws, that it's not a good place to live. But clearly, the laws that we have are practically unenforceable. And I dare say it erodes our confidence in law enforcement, but I also know that their hands are kind of tied with the current laws the way it are, right? So what exactly is necessary for us? If you have witnesses right there on the spot, witnessing ricocheting bullets coming from property right in front of you, you go to the backside of that property, you witness the people, you video record them coming out with AR strapped to their chest. That's not enough. Then what is? What are we looking at that's enough for prosecution? To me, that's ridiculous that that's enough. That means you're literally asking us to video record the person in the act where they're shooting this person, this gun, and you need to record their projectile leaving the property. That's a virtually impossible thing to do. And that just tells us, yes, the law is not really adequate. So what can we do? All right, and there are things we can do. Yes, the law is real simple. It's clear. You guys have the authority to regulate under a certain acreage. Now, what can that do? All right, and there's a lot of different regulations you guys can consider. It doesn't state what the limitations are on the regulations that you guys need to consider. I think, obviously, the easiest thing to do to make something tangible, something that's measurable with an outcome that we can measure and have a better outcome to this is for the commissioners to regulate it. Doesn't say, hey, let's limit everybody's ability to use firearms on their property. Yes, I do think that given the current situation of where the population's moving, the developing industry in our area, that the areas in the unincorporated areas of the county are shrinking, the population is growing. There needs to be an adjustment of what we think, how firearms can be used on property and what property sizes are appropriate. Yes, I do think personally that it should be okay not to fire firearms on 10 acres or less. That's allowed by the state, and I don't think that's a big deal, even for people like us who like shooting. There are literally shooting ranges close to our area that people can benefit from. They can shoot at will in a responsible manner. If there's a regulation in place by the Commissioner's Court on property size, it becomes very easy. It becomes much easier to enforce that law. And it doesn't have to be a Class C misdemeanor. If there's a regulation in place, y'all could place a heavy fine on violating those regulations. A hefty fine, not a $200 fine. Make it a fine that somebody can respect. There can be a fine for that. It's easy. It's way easier to prove that we're shooting from that property than who is pulling the trigger on a gun here. That's virtually impossible to prove. But a landowner who is allowing shooting from his property on a property size of an acreage that's not allowed, that's fairly simple and easier to prosecute. Why can't we do something like that?
Is the property that you're talking about less than 10 acres and platted as a subdivision?
2.5 acre lots right there. All those guys, it's a regular party. These people are just drinking. I got them on video drinking. But like I said, apparently this is not enough. And yes, it's easy to say we shouldn't do something, but the alternative is apparently that nothing gets done, which is not acceptable to me as a responsible, upstanding man. That's not sufficient for me. And having nothing done doesn't work. The age-old saying that for all that evil needs to triumph is for good men to do nothing holds true then, it does today, it will tomorrow. Unless something is done with regards to this, something measurable, and there is obviously something that can be done. I know it's not easy to change the law, but the law is already there. It does allow for some regulation. So let's think about what kind of regulation can we implement. And okay, so I know gun owners, we want to not prohibit how they can use their land. That's fine. But is it okay to shoot if you have a 10 by 10 piece of land? Like 10 foot by 10 foot, is that okay? Because the current law is okay with that. If you parcel any size is okay. Is that reasonable? Is it reasonable to shoot with high powered rifles on a quarter of an acre on a city lot? Something that size. Is that reasonable? I think not. It's not. That's just ridiculous. So why should regulation on something that size or something at some point it's got to be medium ground, right? There's a point at which we can all agree that regulation is common sense. And there's a point where we can say, okay, hey, acreage is this size, it's debatable. Let's have some decent conversations about what's applicable, what can we do? All right. And of course, there's acreage sizes that the state of Texas determines, hey, local authorities have no right to regulate because they say this is big enough to where it should be fine. So why don't we do that? Let's do it. There's a lot of discussion we can have, but yes, back to your question, what can be done? Obviously, the regulation needs to be done. It's something that makes it easily enforceable. It's something that doesn't just tie our law enforcement's hands. Because right now, we get mad at them because how can we not? I had some choice words for the deputy last time for doing nothing. How can I tell him, hey, thank you for something when I get it nothing? I'm going to tell him thank you for nothing. It is what it is. It's unfortunate, but this is what the situation is devolving into. It erodes our confidence in the leadership and in our law enforcement because our rights as citizens is not being protected. So, the situation, I work in a refinery where we deal with millions of man hours every year, large scale projects, and safety is literally our number one objective every day, every single day. And there's a lot of studies that have been done, and it holds true. You work so many man hours, you have so many small incidents. Every so many small incidents leads to one slightly more significant incident. You have so many of those, every one of those leads to one more higher incident. And if it's a triangle that goes up, the more and more significant incidences you have, eventually will lead to a fatality. It holds true. It hasn't started. Those studies haven't started yesterday. What's happening here is no different. It's like these incidences are ramping up. The fact that people can go, and there are, most people are responsible gun owners, but there are people that have blatant disregard for responsible gun ownership, either because they're ignorant, they don't know what can happen, they don't have berms. I tell you, the property where they're shooting from, they're shooting across a pond, all their bullets are ricocheting. That's the same direction Kevin and Amy's park. It's where all this stuff is coming from. They're not the only ones shooting there, but we definitely know they're shooting there. They have no berm on the other side of their pond. They have no means to mitigate where the ammunition goes. And the thing is, when law enforcement shows up there and they can't do anything, how can it do anything except embolden these people? They already know. It doesn't matter what their neighbors think, what we think, because they know the law enforcement shows up and they can't do anything.
I would think that, we should ask the legal department to look into, like say, what other counties and that, and bring it back to the court and let's look
you
at
know
it.
what?
Like I say, I think that
I agree.
I do want to thank you. You have a really well thought out argument, and that is something that I think that we should look into.
And my final thoughts are, what? It may be nice to look into what other counties are doing. Well, all I know is I haven't heard of a county that has a regulation that makes that county undesirable. I would dare say with the population, it's moving in the direction it's moving. Having regulations will probably make the county more desirable because there are more people that do that or not. And honestly, I don't really care that much about what other counties are doing. I care about what we're doing here for us.
if other counties already have the ordinance, we can pull that as a template to start from to
Absolutely.
to draft the ordinance to do something.
It seems to me that the issue is not the size of the property, but the setback from other properties.
Sure, but
that's the real issue. If you're in a neighborhood and you've got 5-acre tracts everywhere and you're right on the edge of the 5 acres, the other 4.5 acres don't make it.
The issue, it sounds to me like, is what
bullet holes.
Suppose we change the law and we still have the problem
no.
that somebody is supposed to get video of somebody actually in the act of shooting. If we don't address that issue, we can pass a new law about making something else illegal, but we have to make it enforceable, which means we got to figure out a way.
Exactly. So
we got to give law enforcement the tools to bring a case, and it can't be that you have to, rely on a neighbor to catch somebody on camera shooting a gun. There's got to be some other approach. Or collect your own bullets. Yeah.
It's way easier to determine which property is getting fired from than it is to determine who's sitting behind the gun pulling the trigger. I think that's ridiculous to put that onus on people to be able to prove that, to have a case in court.
Wendy.
There's 2 in evidence in the evidentiary room, and there's 1 if we had a metal detector, we could probably find 1 or 2 more. And once we had a metal detector.
And then we may have to look into, the tools that we already have in law enforcement
And here's
But
the
clearly
thing.
there's something going wrong here.
But even with the bullets, you have to match the bullets with the rifling and then, I mean, you can't just go
Right.
to someone's home and get their, you know, confiscate their.
Right. And changing our law isn't going to change that part.
Yeah.
That's the
Right.
part we need to
So-
focus on.
And that's exactly, and that's where we can focus on regulating the lot owners, property side. Because I can tell, for example, the gentleman that I encountered when they were shooting on that day to us, that wasn't actually the person staying at that property. Those are friends coming over.
Ms. Lubbock, I think what we'll need to look into is whether or not that regulation can put fines on the property owner, so they're not allowing other people. So it's a
Right.
lot easier to
So-
determine who owns the
Exactly.
property than
So-
who's
Right.
on the
Well, I
property.
mean, for us, the inevitable is coming. Back to the triangle. The inevitable is coming, right?
Right.
If we do nothing, I guarantee you guys, the inevitable is coming. Civil lawsuits are coming, and hopefully later there's not going to be a criminal lawsuit. The civil lawsuit grounds for that's already there. We're already getting impacted. I mean, citizens like us who live in this area, we're residents, we're business owners there. We're trying to meet the growing need for housing in the area. All of those things are directly impacted by the reckless actions of these landowners who are allowing this. And yes, I mean, as far as we're concerned, it's real simple. Those landowners already know, they know what's going on. The sheriffs have been called out there. So I know it was brought up. Do they know? Are they aware? Absolutely. I can show you all the video that I have. Approaching those people, they know. It's not that they don't know. The amount of time law enforcement has been called out there, the property owners know. And as far as we're concerned, they're just as liable as the person pulling the trigger for allowing that to happen. If they know that irresponsible shooting is coming from their property, and of course, and we all know that this is going to happen in a civil lawsuit when it comes. The property owners are going to get sued as well for knowingly allowing that. I'm sorry. I mean, I think I've said just about everything I can say about the matter. We trust you guys to manage to run this county. It's a good county to live in. I don't think we should allow irresponsible people to turn that tide for the rest of us.
I would agree with you. Thank you very much. All right, we have the what's in there? Consent agenda that has the minutes from November 4th, November 8th, November 12th, November 15th. And also acceptance of Aransas County Assistance Department of a donation of blankets valued at $100 from Alma Cartwright to be distributed to Aransas County residents as the need arises.
I move to approve the consent items.
Second.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castelline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Yeah, I,
Mr. Lobba.
Just one quick question. Alma, is that the blankets that were brought in the other day? Or is this, you have a separate program, right?
No, separate program.
Okay. Yeah, we had an additional donation last Friday, I guess it was, Thursday, Friday of, yeah. And I think there were 70 pillowcases and maybe 65 or so blankets in there, 2 or 3 large blankets that would be for older elderly people. And we asked, I could not be here to help unload it, but Ms. Cartwright and her group did a really good job with that, and I thank you for that. I think that's now 700 or so that the guild from Livonia has brought here. 700.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Approve, disapprove, third quarter hot funds report from the Rockport Cultural Arts District.
I move to approve the issuance of the order. The approval of the 2021 third quarter hot fund report for the Rockport Cultural Arts District.
Second.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Well, good morning.
Floor.
Jennifer Day,
Thank you very much for letting us present for the Rockport Cultural Arts District, our quarterly report. The chart package is quite large at this time in comparison to the last one. So some of these I'm going to roll through. We've got two major projects that we're working on. One is the restoration of the Rockport Railroad Depot, a very important asset for Rockport and for Aransas County, and also the cultural interface sculpture. So some of these I'm going to roll through a little bit fast. I wanted to include the history behind some of these and also highlight what we've accomplished through this quarter of July to September of this year. These are our goals, our 5-year strategic plan, and you'll see that we are hitting each one of these as I roll through this. So the Rockport Railroad Depot, what we have completed is repairs from Harvey damage from over 4 years ago. We've secured windstorm. We've leveled and secured leveled the foundation. We've installed a new roof, joists and corbels, and installed a sump pump. We have achieved, although not in the quarter period, but we have achieved the repair and replacing the siding and batten board. You can see the lines where the batten board has been taken off when this picture was taken, and that's been sealed back up with new batten board. We've added skirting, repaired doors, undercoating. We've prepared for paint, and we've actually completed the painting. If you haven't been by there lately, it's looking pretty good. So we're working on moving the water meter and reinstalling the gas meter, moving the water meter because the county parking lot project will be on where that water meter is right now. So we're also doing some electrical and HVAC work, and we're preparing for holiday events that will occur at the depot the first 3 Saturdays of December. We've secured funding. We've gotten a substantial amount of funding. Of course, it's not inexpensive to restore a building, much less an old building like this. It's been sitting for quite some time. We've also gotten private donations. We've got a wonderful old locomotive steam bell that used to sit on a locomotive, and we'll have that. If you'll notice, if you've been to railroad depots in other cities, most of them have a bell. So we were very pleased. This was our first major donation, and we'll get that up, and you'll be hearing that ringing. It sounds fantastic. We've also been working with John Strothman in the county. These are from John with regards to the surrounding parking lot and the landscape. We've worked with the city of Rockport years ago. This was a vision from Rockport actually prior to Harvey to acquire the depot, and then after Harvey, the vision was to use this space as a parking area for the Cultural Arts District. And as things turned out, it's turned out beautifully. We're working with AgriLife on the landscaping, and we're also engaged Gilbert Medina, who is the creative director for the State of Texas Bob Bullock Museum, for his ideas on the interior layout of the museum we're creating. We've initiated a depot advisory group, which several individuals, Commissioner Casterline has agreed to be on. Well, thank you very much. And Mr. Jerry Brundrett as well. Thank you. And hopefully Miss Betty Stiles will agree to that as well. We're working on different other programs. One of the things that we're looking at is train tracks and locomotive and a caboose on the north side, which is the side you're seeing here. Well, we actually have those. I'd prefer to have a dining car versus a caboose, but I'll take what I can get. It would be great to have a little events where we have dining on the diner. So we have a lot of things we're working. One of the other things we're working, and this is an opportunity to draw tourists, mainly targeted at families. There's an agreement between Fulton Mansion, the History Center for Aransas County, the Railroad Depot, and the Texas Maritime Museum. This is an initiative from ARCAD, and basically it's a collective opportunity to visit each one of these venues, and the last of the 4 venues you visit, you get a small gift. So it's somewhat of a little challenge. It's fun, and it has other benefits as well. It's an online automated program. It's fun and alluring for families, and it showcases Aransas County history. It also it'll drive tourist traffic, and it will impact other businesses that these tourists will come in. They'll want to eat, they'll shop, they'll need gas, they'll want to go to the beach. And so there's a lot of benefits here that are residual, and it's very important from a standpoint of collecting tourist data and being able to measure the impact of this. One of the things that we have built this software program is to offer an online flat fee of maybe $20, just use that as an example, for individuals to be able to go and to pre-purchase admission to these venues. And that's just another source of revenue. Moving on to the Cultural Interface Project update. Mr. Steve Russell, our famous Mr. Russell, and his magnificent sculptures. So these are his mini sculptures. He's started to generate the smaller ones, but we're still working on the big ones. This is what we have done over the past well over a year. We've done fundraising, we've executing the design, engineering, and construction resources. We've had community input as well as media relations. We had a huge fundraiser this quarter. It was, you'll see all the artwork in one of those pictures. This art has been donated by artists, local artists here, or families of deceased famous artists here who 100% support Steve. We've raised over $121,000 as of July. And as I mentioned, we've received art from various artists. We need an additional 77 to complete and install the European sculptures and begin the Native American series. We've had in-kind services of over $91,000 between Rock Engineering and Derrick Construction Company. It's pretty substantial. We have additional funding efforts in place that we're working. And this is just a little chronological view of Steve, and here's the engineering layout of the space. This is when we delivered the European series to Fort Worth for bronzing. Again, we've had community input. There have been unsolicited letters in the pilot supporting this initiative. We have experts in Robert Harris, Dr. Robert Harris, who grew up in Rockport, who is a history professor at the Columbia University in New York City, and from the Rockport Center for the Arts, which helps us with our grant requests. Media relations has been a little bit a challenge. There's was an inaccurate story in the Texas Monthly. We've addressed that. We've continued to have very positive media relations as well. We've had him featured in the Ben magazine. And he's also been written up in several local media. So the Cultural Interface celebrates the multicultural heritage of Aransas County, Spanish and French explorers, the early religious settlers, and the Native Americans.
Rockport has many decorative and abstract sculptures. However, cultural interface will be a timeless homage to our cultural heritage, preserving our history. Okay, I want to go quickly over these other initiatives that we've been working. We did have the north signage, our new signage that replaced the rotted Heritage District signs that were literally about to fall over, adding the flags downtown during the summer months. This is our new dual-sided sign at Market and Austin Street at the south end. We work with Pathways, the city, TxDOT to add the logo stamps in the district sidewalks, which is the Southern Trail. We had a collaboration between the city of Rockport, the Chamber Foundation, district merchants, and the Texas Coastal Trailer Trash vendor, providing public bathrooms, air-conditioned public bathrooms over the summer months through October. We were a spark here, and we're very glad that we were able to do this. ARC sponsored the shopping tournament in 2018 and 2019 in collaboration with the Education Foundation. And then when the Women's Lion Club was looking at that, we were able to pull all of our data, all of our structure information, and provide that to them. They did champion the shopping tournament, and kudos to them. There were 20 teams, and those 20 teams, that's 80 people shopping this past October 5th, sharing their dollars. The Women's Lion Club raised over $12,000 gross, and that also supported our merchants here. Those funds at a very pivotal time, right before Christmas shopping, and with merchant discounts, they were able to spend those dollars and reinfuse the economy. Kudos to the Women's Club. We've also had district merchant meetings. We continue to have district merchant meetings, which drives collaboration between the merchant owners. We continue managing the multi-level geocaching game, which drives traffic downtown. We've also worked with Kevin Baker on his green space. We have done a feasibility study for him for a food truck and for a little art market there, which he is very grateful for and wants to pursue. Social media, there's our likes, both on our Railroad Depot Facebook page and on our regular Facebook page. And I did add our budget. I know that was asked for before, and I added that in here year to date through September 30th. And thank you very much from the ARCAD board. Appreciate it. Do I have any questions?
All y'all are doing.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Jennifer,
Yes.
did you have any statistical numbers on the visitors?
This time, this quarter, no. The main thing we did this quarter, I will have it next quarter. We prepped for Halloween in the district. The main thing we did this particular quarter was the fundraiser for Steve Russell. And most of those individuals were local individuals. So that was the main thing. We certainly are working on major projects that will drive traffic and will allow for numbers as we proceed.
Could I ask one other thing?
Sure.
The packet was a sizable volume of
Yes, it
data.
was.
Could you just pull out the 2 pages, the statement of activities year to date, the revenue and expenditures, and just send that either to Tracy or to Colin? So we don't have to try to have our computers open all those 50 plus pages. We can just get those 2 pages.
Okay, just the financials?
Yes, please.
Okay, I will
Thank
be
you.
glad to do that. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo. Aye. Commissioner Laubach.
Aye.
Discuss, disapprove order number 017-2021, which establishes the Aransas County Adult Sexual Assault Response Team, setting forth requirements regarding the composition of the team, meeting and attendance requirements, procedures to fill vacancies, and development of protocols, reporting requirements, and confidentiality, and providing for an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so this is a unfunded mandate made by the state. And we are required to name the members before December 1st of this year and have our first meeting before December 1st. In the event that any of the members that are listed are unavailable, such as if they leave their job or otherwise, then we will have to come back to replace them. But this doesn't cost us any money. It's just meetings for us to determine what type of response our law enforcement and other agencies should have when they're called out for a sexual assault of an adult. We already have a group that handles for minors, so this will only be people over the age of 18. It's going to be very confidential though, so you won't be receiving any reports from us or anything like that.
One of my questions, Amanda, and you answered it, was, did the state provide any funding?
No.
Or just one more unfunded mandate? Thank you for that information. Thank you, state. The other.
You're saying it doesn't cost us anything, so.
No, it
nothing
doesn't
to
cost
fund.
anything and it doesn't
Staff
provide any
time.
money. Yes, just time.
Yeah.
And so all of the other members who are not county employees are also volunteering their time, as we must.
And then I just had a question on section 10, and thank you for putting in who all of the members are. Are any of these members in the court today to be introduced or no?
Aside from myself, no, we were under a very big time crunch. So unfortunately, I couldn't arrange to have everyone come.
And I know on some of them, it says this person will be the participant or the designee.
Correct.
And for number 6, Jorge de los Santos from the Director of Coastal Plains Community Center. Will he be providing a designee? Because it doesn't mention that in here. Or is he thinking he will make all of the meetings?
If he's unable to, he can name a designee. We're only meeting about every 3 months, so it's not going to be that time intensive. Our first meeting will probably have to be on Zoom since it's only next week. Before we get to December 1st, we're coming up really close on it.
Right.
But he anticipated being there in person, but in the event, or being there himself, but in the event he can't, he can designate one of his employees as long as they're qualified.
Okay, thank you.
See the lady in the back standing.
Oh. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you in the back. If you want to come so everyone can see you. So Detective Marshman is who Rockport Police Department has named to be on our task force. So if you'd like to say hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for serving on there.
Absolutely. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
So the first year will be spent making sure that we get all of our ducks in order, if you will, because by December 1st of next year, we have to have everything in order of a plan on how we're going to set forth for all of our law enforcement when they're investigating, determine what tasks they should accomplish and what services they will have to give or suggest to our victims whenever they first arrive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava.
Aye.
Discuss, approve, allowing airport manager to include Sunday, December 12th, 2021 to the fly-in, which was previously approved at the Commissioners Court on November the 12th.
I move to approve as read.
I second that.
Mike, you want to say anything? Or?
Thank you very much. Good morning. So after meeting with the other organizers for the fly-in, we determined that there's enough interest from folks that we're expecting to show up and other stakeholders that are involved in the fly-in that we would probably benefit from another day. Weather's supposed to be pretty nice, and then that gives folks the opportunity to come down for a day and leave, and then the next day have room for more folks to fly in. So.
Mike, I've got a question for you. This is a great event. It's always been well received and everything. Why? It looks to me like this has been a wonderful opportunity to showcase Rockport and Fulton and Aransas County through like our cultural arts center and things to have displays out there for folks coming in, because the people that are flying in are not flying in on welfare.
That's right.
You know, I think that this would be an opportunity, if we're going to do it annually, to really make it into a community event with, you know, with Chamber of Commerce and
Sure.
Arts Center and whomever else. I know we're trying to get a boys and girls club here, you know, to have something out there to a little bit, so people can have other things to do than just sit around and wait for the next plane to take off.
I agree. And so, yeah, I invite anybody that wants to come out and set up a booth, any organization in town. I wouldn't have a problem with that. You know, we'll have a liability policy for the event for the people that are walking around, so it doesn't hurt anything for that. And then I've got a lot of volunteers as well. But yeah, just if anybody wanted to come out and join the event from just from a setting up a booth or being able to hand out their information, I don't think I'd have any kind of problem with that, as long as it met county guidelines. I wouldn't want anybody out running for office or anything like that, you know,
No.
on county property.
Well,
but
you know, and I was thinking that it be a Aransas County thing, not bringing people in from, I mean, however y'all want to set it up, but I think this is a real good opportunity to get Aransas County, Rockport and Fulton out to areas that may just fly in from Oshkosh or someplace,
Sure.
you know.
And that's it. You know, the other thing too that I worry about a little bit, and I say worry, I mean, I'm concerned about is, what if we get too many people show up? You know, so we only have so much land that you can park on, so much pavement and or ground that's not too soft. So I have to. This is kind of we're learning a little bit too about what the interest is for something like that. But I think ultimately this is a baby step toward running a little bit more with an air show and bringing air shows back to Aransas County Airport. And that's where you can really, really take off with something like that, where you can bring in arts and crafts and other things, other vendors. Right now, we're expecting to have one food truck for this, but then again, 4-H is cooking hot dogs for folks for donations. So this will kind of be a barometer to help us decide how future events can go.
Yeah. And I think it'd be your previous events have all turned out real good. And,
yeah, the ones that
the
ones that we've actually been able to have. Yeah, the weather seems to play a role every single time. But right now, we're expecting a high pressure system over the area for the time of the event. High pressure in aviation and in weather, you understand that high pressure means generally good, clear weather. So that's what we're hoping for.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Lava.
Aye.
All right. Preliminary discussion regarding a request to abandon an alleyway right away in North Bellevue Edition, Block 8, lots 1 through 6. Yeah, Como, are you on? Or
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
We can.
This is a preliminary request in order to start the public notice process. This is to show y'all where this request is. It is in an area that abuts a non-developed area, and so the alleyway abandonment request would be to make the lot more in compliance and to be able to further develop it in a way that would for septic upgrades or for any other additional requirements that wouldn't be allowed on a smaller lot size. This is one of the areas that was platted about 100 years ago, or at least it was platted a while ago. But it would not impact any of the property owners around it. It does not show any any lots that would be landlocked by this request. However, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or.
Kat, that's in, I know the property, we talked about it with the person in the office there, but there's one of the lots that belongs to someone else. Do you know if that person's been contacted? I mean, I don't see why you would have an issue, but I think it's always good to contact any adjoining lot owner.
I do not know if that property owner has been contacted, but we can definitely make that happen before the final vote.
the only lot that's not owned by the petitioner is accessible by a paved right-of-way. But I'd be happy to make sure that we have that property owner's opinion for the commissioners.
And I believe Mr. Atkins has contacted that property owner. And because I've talked with him, I think he contacted you first, Commissioner Casterline.
He was actually
And
in
then-
the road and bridge asking about it, and I was sitting in another
Okay.
room. And,
But as Kat mentioned, it does have a line of egress out to another road, and so it wouldn't be a problem. But we certainly, since this preliminary discussion, if you're willing to do that, Kat, that would be great.
some lot owners use those alleyways as a back access to the property, but I don't believe this one is.
I will be
Roll call.
happy to double check and make
We're
sure
not
that
gonna-
the property owner is aware and that any
Oh.
impacts that
Yeah, it's
he's
just
worried
discussion.
about is communicated.
Thank you.
All right, I would say, I think normally we vote on the preliminary ones, but I would say it's a consensus that you proceed.
Correct. There's no action required. I will be contacting that property owner and putting together a more complete report for the commissioners, and the public notice process will be handled before it comes back to the court for vote.
All right, thank you. All right, discussion, approve, disapprove, allowing Aransas County Road and Bridge to submit a grant application to request funding for road improvements to the Texas Department of Transportation Highway Safety Improvement Program.
So moved.
Cat again, I believe.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. This grant is a federally funded state administered program. It's administered through TxDOT. Typically, it is a 90% of federally funded, 10% local match. What we are targeting in this application would be projects that are eligible for a increased federal share. And so any projects that are being applied for would be 100% funded.
So Cat, any certain type of projects like roads or drainage or
This
is it?
program is for smaller
everything?
projects that target safety concerns. And so the types of projects are like additional lighting, advanced warning signs, additional signage, rumble strips. It's a smaller pot of money. It's a smaller project than like larger safety improvements.
Any other questions? for me? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castellano,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava.
Aye.
Approved to discuss, approve or disapprove the issuance of resolution R 29/2021, appointing the members of the Aransas County Tree Committee as follows: Vic Rhodes of Precinct 11A, Ed Hagan for Precinct 2, Shelley Schubert Steckler for Precinct 3, Debbie Griffin for Precinct 4, Betty Stiles as the county judge's nominee, and Pat Russo as the ex officio member on behalf of the Commissioners Court, and with the initial terms of service to be determined by drawing of lots.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
I have a comment. It's not precisely on the membership. I don't have any problem with the membership of the committee. But I have been receiving a lot of comments from the public and including my neighbors. I don't think, I know I did not focus, and I'm not sure if any of us focused on the fact that one of the consequences of the statute as we've written it, the order as we've written it is, if you live in a lot that's over an acre and you have even one 6-inch tree, even if you have 1,000 trees and you want to take down one dead one, it's a foregone conclusion that your permit application is going to be granted. But every time you need to do that, you've got to pay $50 and go deal with some red tape. And I would really like us to consider some kind of de minimis exception, because I've got neighbors who live on, 5 and 10 acre lots who now and then need to take down a tree. And well, there's really two things. One, they really shouldn't have to pay $50 every time they need to take down a tree if they know they're going to need to take down one a year or something. It's not very workable for them. And two, I worry about the language of the order requiring everybody to make a survey of all of their trees. I've got a neighbor with a 5-acre lot, wants to take down a few trees that are dead from Harvey, or at least lying down flat on the ground. And he clearly will get his permit granted, but it's a very difficult thing to give the county a survey of every single tree on his lot, which
Commissioner-
can't really be what we want from people. Now, I know I've talked to environmental health and they think that the way to handle it is, you give them a little sketch of kind of the nearby
Commissioner?
trees and then you estimate the rest of the property. And there's some ways to make it more workable. But I just think that kind of stuff needs some attention. And I'm getting lots of very worried comments from people who don't want a clear cut, nothing like that. But they also aren't really asking for a building permit. So this is kind of a, out of the blue requirement that could be time consuming and expensive for them.
Commissioner, we have to be careful that when, sorry, I'm sorry for interrupting you. We have to be very careful that we stick with the item that's on the agenda today, and it's strictly related to the tree committee. If we want to talk more about the language of the order, if we could do that at the end of the meeting when the commissioners often speak to issues. But I also want to mention though, that the tree order applies when somebody wants to remove 50% of the trees or more. So there are some things that you and I need to talk about separately about the order and perhaps bring some revisions to
The order
order.
does, but not the application, the duty to apply. Let me just say, I would be happy to say all of the comments that I just made, let's move them to the end of the meeting. I don't need to repeat them, but I didn't intend to try to get us into a discussion of deliberating on action. I'm just reporting concerns I've heard from the public.
Roll call.
Before we do, we've got some people in the audience who are on the committee who came, can we acknowledge them?
Yes, we can. Betty.
Betty is here. Debbie Griffith is here. Anybody else?
Debbie right here. Okay. Anybody else that we named that's here? We appreciate
Pat,
you.
Obviously.
The Patsy ex officio. Do we want them to come up and speak, or do you guys want to?
It's up to them, really.
They don't seem to want to.
We're glad you're willing to serve.
We are glad you were here and willing to serve.
I was just involved with the tree committee from the very first day when Howard Murph was still alive and went to the state legislature to get this ordinance approved. So I have been involved with it in a long time. We have been dormant for a while, and mainly because you know why, because we've had so much else going on.
Yeah. Well,
But anyway, I am proud to serve. I think it's important, and we can address any issues that may arise that we can work on together. I'm happy to meet Debbie for the first time. I've known Ed Hagan because he served on the committee with me on groundwater. And so, but I don't know the other gentleman.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for serving.
Well,
Sometimes,
Debbie, would you be willing to just say a little?
sometimes when you get on committees, it's, what did I do when you get started?
What have I gotten myself
Well, I hope
into?
that's
Be
not the
careful
case.
what you wish for.
Yeah, I'm Debbie Griffith. I live out in Copano Cove. I'm also a Texas master naturalist and pretty involved with those here in the county. And I'm passionate about our trees. I know I have contacted environmental about some issues in the past. And I'm really looking forward to talking with Betty and learning a little bit more about the history as well of the committee and some of the other things that have taken place. And I'm very willing to serve and devote my time to it.
Well, thank you. Thank you all again for volunteering to
Bubba,
serve.
I might like to mention, I know I saw some comments on social media, like who doesn't, about some of the nominees, and one concern, Shelley Schubert Steckler has a husband who's in the tree trimming business, and they thought, oh, how ironic that a person on the tree committee has a husband who's trimming the trees down. As someone else on social media stated, that person is very thoughtful in his trimming and in recommendation to minimize any kind of long-term damage and to preserve as many trees as possible. And actually, Shelley has done a lot working with the realtors. She is a realtor, but trying to inform them of the importance of trees to our community, and will be a tremendous asset while still allowing for some growth. And I don't know if you want to speak to Ed Hagan and Vic Rhodes. I know them both from other community work.
Ed is retired head of the Parks and Wildlife Lab here for many, many years, and lived in Rockport for probably 40 years or more, and says, you know, he has a big interest in the trees, and I think would be an asset from his biological background. And like I say, he was the head of the lab down here, and the research that goes on by the Parks and Wildlife in the bays and in the area. So I think he'd be a real good. And I know Shelley personally, and she's probably going to be the far the person
No,
on there
she-
that's the most aggressive about trees. I've
It's a
had
tree hugger.
conversations with her.
And Vic Rhodes from my precinct, he's retired manager for Verizon GTE, has a master's degree in business, and he's been retired for a while and has been looking for something where she can start giving back to the community. And I asked him, and I think he had his resume down here that same day. So I think we got several good, all the people on there are very competent.
Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castelline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Lobach.
Aye.
All right, discuss, approve, disapprove resolution R 28, 2021, a joint resolution for joint primary election to be held on March 1st, 2022, and a joint primary runoff election if necessary on May 24th, 2022.
So
Kevin?
moved.
Second. Anybody?
I'll
Second.
So this is just your formal authorization allowing both parties and myself to enter a contract for joint primary services. A joint primary is typically what's done here in Aransas County. I have records indicating back to 2014, might even go before that. But it does really save the county money, the party's money, makes things a lot smoother for the voters. We share the same equipment, the same workers, and the same polling places compared to a separate primary election.
Thank you. Any questions? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castelline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Lobach.
Aye.
All right, discuss, approve, or disapprove amending Aransas County's master services agreement with Spectrum Enterprises to all services at Aransas County History Center at the cost of $114.98 per month, plus applicable federal and state surcharges.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Good morning. So this is just adding a separate internet connection for the History Center. They've been without internet out there since the great storm we had in September, something like that. So we're trying to get them back up and running, and this is a way to do it without constantly having to get on the roof. We've had a wireless connection out there for a long time, but it constantly has just been an issue.
Yeah, I would think the amount of stuff that they use, they really good.
They have definitely increased their programming out there. They need their own connection.
I just have one question. Is this coming out of hot funds or is it coming out of general fund?
It should be coming out of their venue.
Venue
fund.
tax? I'm sorry? Matthew Venue. Okay.
Colin, what is the effective date of this?
As soon as we sign it, then they'll probably get into a 30-day waiting period for them to come and install it. So.
Okay. And as a docent who works at the History Center, I can tell you, we really need that service. So thank you.
All right, roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castelline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Lobach.
Aye.
Unanimous. Let's see, discuss, approve, disapprove, authorizing the county clerk to seek additional grants for the remaining funds needed, approximately $1 million to complete a record archives project for the county clerk's records to facilitate public records access and to preserve records to the TSLAC, Texas State Library and Archives Commission standard as required by law.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions?
Do we have are we pretty sure we're going to get this?
You never are, I would say.
No.
No, I know that.
Are we pretty sure we're going to?
If you're gonna get it, I'd say.
She's
you
looking,
never are.
she's looking for it.
I'm seeking permission. Perhaps I'm doing this in the wrong order. I didn't know that you saw the grants first. I think you asked the order
Yeah.
for permission and then
I
to
would
seek the
agree.
grants. So I'm hoping to find them, but at this point, I'm just asking for the opportunity with the court's permission to seek these grants.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castro.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Lotto.
Aye.
All right, discuss, approve, disapprove approving a 5-year agreement with Tyler Technology for Tyler Eagle recording software and an annual cost of $39,949 for the county clerk's office. Ooh, wow.
Is there a motion?
So moved,
Second.
but I'd just like to hear about why we need to spend the money and what's up.
Mr. Cashwan, review the second.
Yes.
Okay, so this is for new recording software. This is a very big project, important for the county. We have very outdated software that is not user-friendly. It is not available to people from their homes. It is not, the records are not accessible. One of the big things that I think is important for this county is for our records to be truly public records, those that are public. This will modernize the office. This will allow people to be able to, from their home, look up records. And then if they choose to purchase them, they can also purchase them similar to like an Amazon. You can put it in your shopping cart. This will give a much better system. We have a very, very old system. This will also eliminate the laserfish. It will eliminate EDOC in my office. It will put out the things that just a lot of transparency, and that in conjunction with this was part of my archive annual spending plan that I put forward that analyzed all of the records, took about 4 months to look through all the records of what we have. And it's really very important. We're fortunate that we didn't lose our records in the hurricane. And something like this is really essential in order to keep doing what the county needs to do with records.
Gary, do you have an idea what the net difference time you do away with the existing programs and put this one in? What is the?
It's probably about $20,000
more.
Mm-hmm.
So was that in your budget for this year?
It is.
Okay.
And I have a question. I know we have mixed history with Tyler Technology and success. So this is a program through Tyler Technology, right, Colin?
That is correct.
I'd also like to comment on that. I know we've had some issue in the past with Tyler Technology, but I also believe that Tyler Technology gets bashed in ways that they probably, it's just easy to layer onto that. We looked at all of the opportunities out there. Tyler Eagle is different than Tyler Odyssey. I will say in my office, we think Tyler Odyssey is very, very good. The problems that we have at all are things that the county doesn't do correctly. If we have more than one record, that's our fault. We have to, garbage in, garbage out. And Tyler Technology has amazing products. And in recording software, this is to us the very best that there can be. And I think that you'll be very pleased with what it is. And I guess I'd like to have people just open to the idea that maybe Tyler has a really good product rather than to just layer on.
Gary, does recording software, does that basically mean scanning? I mean, so you're taking physical
Recording
documents?
software is, the difference is, like I have a court management software and I have a recording software. Recording are things in the office that we record, like the public records. This would be part of like property records, vital statistics, things that come through, not a court record. It's a different
So it's not-
management system.
It's not just scanning in existing paper. Sometimes you actually create the record in the software.
Well, we will be scanning in the record into it, records what is being filed.
Okay, so it's essentially scanning, it's digitizing what would
And
otherwise be
and
paper.
it's an indexing system so that
Okay.
people are, if things are accurate. We'll be having a historical index as we, so that people can find documents again, even from their cell phone. They may not have the whole document until we get all of this. That's why I'm trying to seek additional grants, because we need to have all of our property records, all of our oil and gas, all of our, I don't necessarily think we need to go back and recap and memorialize every court record we have, because we have TSLAC standards of what we do on that. But
okay, so let me interrupt for a second. I just want to make sure. It's part of it is scanning, part of it is indexing so that it's searchable and can be
preservation.
ordered.
Well,
and then now the question is, and it's not just going forward, you'll be trying to catch up also on some old stuff?
It will take what we have both from EDOC and then also from Laserfish, and it will convert those products into it and
so some catch up and some going forward.
Right. And all the things that we're doing going forward, it will just be adding into it.
I think that's where we had a lot of issues with Tyler originally, was that when you tried to put
the conversion
stuff in there, it didn't match up. And plus a lot of the things we thought was in there, it wasn't.
So is the goal that, I mean, say I want to look up, deed restrictions in my neighborhood. Somebody wants to know, is there an HOA or are there deed restrictions in this neighborhood? That's the kind of thing we'll be able to search for online.
You may be able to, that's not the top priority on that, because that's more of a multi-step thing. When you're looking at deed restrictions, a lot of that, you'll have to go back to the HOA documents. And if the HOA documents have been filed in the records, because
you can find
it's all a working.
I mean, I realize it's only what you actually have in your
Right.
record, but
We
that's the
can't,
kind
we're
of-
not creating the documents. It's what has
But
been filed.
If it's been filed in the county real estate records, a lot of it now will be something we can search online and get copies of.
Right. And the other thing, right now, things, you typically search grantee, grantor. We'll have those fields as well. We also have legal description, but sometimes we have people who they're just not understanding the whole process, and they put a person's name in as the owner of a property that's maybe a nickname or something like that. And so we will also have OCR. So in this particular case, right now, our system is incredibly limited. If you have any little space or a comma, or you don't have something, you're not going to pick it up. In this particular case, you can search, and the search system will be much
more forgiving,
and much more user friendly.
Are there other programs out there like this? We just happen to go with Tyler because
None as good. We searched, we had demos. Colin was involved with it, and Tana to some extent. We've gone to other counties. We've visited different counties and looked, and Tyler was by far the top, and just the product.
Could we hear from IT just to
please
be sure we have a full picture? Yeah.
I'll be up there. I can talk.
As long as they can hear you at home.
Okay. I'm okay with Tyler Recorder. They definitely are a different division than Odyssey. I just want to make sure we've also looked at and understand. I did not totally look through the contract that you gave me, Carrie. I did not have time, but I want to make sure that you had everything in there that you're looking for, that it's spelled out, because Tyler is very good at, here's a nice price. Oh, you want to do online? Oh, that's an add-on. Oh, you want to do OCR? That's an add-on. Oh, you want to redact? That's an add-on.
Well, that's all in there. I'm pretty picky on those sorts of things, and have a little bit of experience with contracting, and which does not mean that I'm happy to sit down page by page with you if that's something. I want it to be what's right for the county.
Sure.
And I think we've looked at all of the things, and I'm more than happy to share. I think the one thing that is something that will be additional expense as we go along is upload charges. And that really is not I've got a number that's not part of this. Typically, when you change your software, you're going to have two uploads. You're going to have your initial upload, and then at some point before you go live, you'll have your final upload. So there's a time urgency to get as much scanned, as much imaged and indexed as possible so that those items are included in that upload. And then as we would do pieces of it, we would have to determine, and you make a decision on, we have this many things to upload. You wouldn't want to pay that charge every time you get the next thing prepared. And so that's why there is a certain urgency to get as much done prior to the final.
I think if we do approve this, we need to add the caveat that the IT and the legal department will review the.
Well, they both
agreement.
They both
Have
have
y'all already?
the agreement.
Jen, have y'all looked at it? Or?
I've taken a look at the contract language. It's generally what we see from Tyler. There wasn't anything there surprising. It is a 5-year contract with that annual cost that is set at the $39,000 and some odd dollars. I didn't see anything in there about the upload fee that Carrie's talking about and describing what that includes, but it sounds like she has been working with Tyler closely on that. And that's not really a legal problem. That's a problem for someone other than me, someone smarter than me, but it was
I
fine.
would say we need to let Colin look over it since
I would like to know more
he's
about the
familiar
upload
with,
fee.
he's familiar with. the
That may
problems
be
we have.
something that's tied to where they're now storing their data, which is at Amazon's GovCloud. And Amazon is very pricey with their bandwidth.
It's very, Colin, you need to speak up. I can't hear you.
So that upload fee, I'm not sure if it entails where they're storing their data or if it's actually the work of Tyler people making the mapping of old data to new places in Odyssey or in Eagle, or if it's tied to to where they're choosing to store their data, which is in Amazon's data centers.
I believe it's the first, because there's every time you do it, there's, you're looking at from the conversion on those items too. It's not just a storage of and we have talked to,
sure,
we've traveled, we had you, and absolutely, I'll spend as much
This
time.
is only the first time I'm hearing of the upload fee. I knew that there'd be conversion costs, but
Well, so my concern usually is it in the budget? And if the upload fee is separate from the 40,000 a year, I just need to know, do you have a feeling for what the upload fees are, and are those also in your budget?
Yes, the upload would be something that would be part of the ongoing, we collect fees as we record documents, as we do these things in our office. So those things would be accruing. And when we would have enough money, we would do it. And I believe the upload fee, it's either $3,500 or $3,600.
Okay, so you're not expecting any impact on the budget because you do this as you can afford it with incoming fees, pay as you go.
Exactly.
Okay.
I would still like to have Colin looking.
I would like him
Since
to
he's
look at it
familiar
as
with,
well.
since he's familiar with past issues that we've had, that there's not something that's being overlooked in there. Before if there's nothing there, well, I don't have.
And
So are we going to put it off for a couple of weeks or just make it contingent on IT sign off?
I would say just make it continue.
Well-
Like I say, we had a lot of back issues and hopefully we figured them all out. So
I'm okay with that. I mean, we can
ability to
sit down and talk and
notice them in there
today.
Colin, I want to know what an upload fee is. It every document that they do, that we put on the thing, or they charging 35 cents or $35 or?
The way I'm understanding this upload fee, it's actually more of a conversion. So they're going to take a bulk dump of data.
Yeah, it's in batches.
So in a batch of old data that wasn't ready at our initial go live time, make it ready to be loaded in.
Okay.
They're not charging us to upload individual items.
Okay, so we go and get a document in there, deed of trust, or whatever it is, and that's taken care of. They do what they need to do in the county clerk's office. And then I'm out there 2 months later and I want to look at that document.
Right. New
Okay.
stuff going
Well-
forward would automatically be uploaded at the time of entry and creation.
So is there a fee for that?
No, can I explain this to you?
Yes,
So
please.
our office right now is in our system, in our current recording system that goes back to November 1st of 1991. So October 31st of 1991, we don't have imaged and indexed. Okay. So all of these things, whether they're on microfiche or in books or these things that they're not digitized, they're not indexed. If all of those things were already done, we wouldn't have any upload fees because they'd be part of the system. If we had everything ready to go, it wouldn't be an issue. So what we want to do is get as much ready and then determine, okay, now we have this big group that's coming in. Anything that we're doing today is automatically going into the system and it's
there's
part
no
of it.
additional fee for that.
There's no additional fee. The additional fee comes when you have, okay, now we
Past
have
data.
new things, like all the things that we're getting done for the ARPA grant and hopefully other grants that I'm going to be able to get because we need to have those records public, accessible to the public. And that's why, I put together the plans that I did, because the more that we have in there, the easier it is and we get it done.
So in a perfect world where by the end of next year, you had everything done in the past, and I know that that's not going to happen, but if you did, and you had one upload fee,
$3,600.
then we'd never see that again
Yes, that's correct.
because everything else would be current.
That would be correct. If everything was current, you wouldn't have to worry about upload fees because whatever you're putting in today goes right into the system. It's not written onto a book and then that way. So you're taking stuff from a book and you're imaging it, and then you're getting somebody to analyze the pieces of it and index it and then make the programs to make it speak to one another to go into the system.
How does that affect what we've been trying to do since Harvey, where we were trying to get past records so that we could, we could get them, some of the past records were so old and we restored them and are in the process of restoring them. Now, have those been digitized? Would that be a part of a?
They have not been digitized, and that's why the importance, and that's why I worked so hard to put my ARPA grant together, and I needed $2.5 million, and I got $1 million. I had $500,000 in my budget because it hasn't been used for a number of years in order to do these things, and I'm estimating about another $1 million based on today's dollars.
So whenever we transfer that data, whenever that $1 million worth of data is done and we go to put it on this system, then there's a singular upload fee for that. There may be 3 or 4 stages. I understand that.
It depends on, okay, so the way that I anticipate this is we get, at the best case scenario, the new software is probably mid-April for conversion. Okay. So anything that we get done, and we open the bids on December 13th, Jackie, is that correct? For the RFP. Okay. So we've got the things out for the ARPA funds right now, and the bid opening is December 13th. You would anticipate, but it's not necessarily so, but you would anticipate that a company who is doing this bid will be ready to go as quickly as possible, but you've got some logistics there. So as they are doing these things, as much as they can get done.
Interrupt you, Terry, but I think I would recommend we table this till the next meeting where anybody that wants to could dig more deeply into the
Commissioners,
deal, including Colin.
the contract that we brought for you today is just for her regular services, the 5 years at the 39,000. For you to, for her to be able to pay any upload fees, she'd have to come back to you because that's not actually included in the monetary authorization in today's item. So if you would like to approve today's contract, it would be for her daily services and converting what she has in the system now. And future issues with past data and uploading, we would bring back to you in a different item.
Back to whoever made the motion originally. What's your desire?
I think what we talked about was approving this contract after Colin reviewed it and felt comfortable about it. And I think that's fine.
So we're amending the motion to make it contingent on final IT sign off. Or at least I so amend it.
I'll
Move to
second
amend
that.
Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
I hate Tyler. I'll vote for it because I think we do need to move forward. It's an aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye for the amended proposal.
Commissioner Laubach.
Aye.
Commissioner Castleline, did you vote ahead of time? I thought you did.
I did. I didn't. I
Okay.
voted before you called my name.
That's what I thought. I
but you
just
didn't-
wanted
you
to be
didn't
sure
call
I
my
didn't.
name, So
That's good.
you, if
He
you
voted
call
twice.
my name, I'll wait on.
He gets 2 ayes.
That's all right.
All right, discuss, approve, disapprove, October 2021 treasurer's report.
So moved.
I'll second it. And I just have 2 questions. I don't want you to think I'm not reading your paperwork. So on, I guess it's page 2, when you're showing the receipts and disbursements for the month of October, could you just give us a little information, please? One is on account fund 435, the downtown anchor. And just what are those expenses? I'm thinking maybe architect or engineering, but you could probably tell me.
Actually, the auditors could probably be more specific, but the downtown anchor is.
Yes, ma'am. The downtown anchor, that would be our construction manager agent. Those are not covered under the FEMA insurance and stuff. Those are under the downtown anchor.
So those are
Specifically
payments to
county
Broadus?
expenditures. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. And then the other is for fund number 535, long-term recovery.
That is solely the long-term recovery, Ms. Fowles' salaries.
Aren't there other things in there? Because
No, ma'am.
that's more than what her annual salary is. I mean, it probably had William Whitson's in it too, but
It did at one time, yes, ma'am. The total of their salaries is what that fund is.
thank you.
Roll call.
If-
Or anybody? Go ahead.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castleline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Laubach.
Aye.
All right, discuss, approve, disapprove the proposed revision to the Aransas County Employee Handbook regarding holiday pay for county employees as recommended by the County Benefit Committee and the County Handbook Committee.
I
So-
move to approve.
Second.
Linda here or?
She was over there.
Anybody have any further questions than last time?
I just have one question, and I guess just to affirm either Linda or Jen. And I think this is great, and we sort of talked over it last time, so that's good. But under 2B-19, reserved, and there's no other text in that section. And is that just being reserved
For
in case we?
further policies later on, yes. Can you hear me?
Because there was language there currently, and because there are items that come before and after 19, we're making the numbering make sense, even though we're working on hopefully a future revision where we will renumber things. For the moment, it's a placeholder. Should an additional provision be adopted in the meantime, because there are numbers that come before and after that are commonly used and referred to in other sections,
okay.
it's just reserved as a placeholder.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castleline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Laubach.
Aye.
All right, discuss, approve, disapprove, proposed revision to the Aransas County Employee Handbook regarding reimbursement policies for steel-toed boots for county employees as recommended.
Move to approve as read.
Second that.
Anybody? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lopper.
Aye.
Oh, discuss, approve, disapprove, but budget line item transfers.
So moved as read.
She has one.
Oh,
Have
you
none
have
at this time.
I'll second that.
Who was the initial?
I thought
Secretary
Cheney.
Commissioner Cheney,
Yeah, aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lopper.
Aye.
Discuss, approve, or disapprove accounts payable and payroll liabilities.
Yes, on top of our regular normal payables, you will notice this one was rather large. We had $2 million that we actually, Alma bought some investments. So those show as going out of our regular bank account, but they were investments. We also submitted the balance of the settlement for Aransas, or the city of Aransas Pass, $614,982 to David Earls, to the attorney. And we had 1.357 in grants. Those are reimbursable expenses. $1 million of it was on the Cedar Bio project. And then we did have some architect expenditures that will be reimbursed by FEMA. So even though it looks like we spent $4 million, we really did.
All right. Anybody else? Roll call.
I actually need motions.
I move to approve accounts payable and payroll liabilities.
I second that.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lopper.
Aye.
All right, reports from commissioners, elected officials, department heads. No action will be taken. Did you have something, Commissioner, on one of the previous?
I would just, I adopt everything I said out of order earlier about the looking harder at the tree, the impact of the tree order.
Anybody else?
Commissioner, I would like to clarify something on what Ms. Russo's question was on the long-term recovery. That is multiple years. That is not one annual. When you're looking at
All right, thank
that
you.
balance. Those are expenses that we anticipate getting revenue from our force account labor and our admin fees to cover that. So it's showing the large deficit right now until we collect those. We have collected some and we are in process of working on getting some more. We actually submitted to the insurance for about $300,000 off those expenses.
Thank you, Jane.
I have what I would entitle a report / apology. Last week, in the review of the grants, bill came up about moving the medical grant to the old urgent care building. This all stemmed from a comment that I made, not the judge, after one of our weekly meetings on Monday morning. I will admit I have a negative opinion of the medical contract, and I made that known at the end of this meeting. I apologize to Patricia for her being kind of blindsided with it, and ACMS and the judge for taking the heat. But nevertheless, I have the right to my opinion, and I have a negative opinion of the grant for what is called the medical facility. And I think in the near future, it needs to come before the court and make some firm decisions on what we need to do with it. Thank you.
Well, I think I'd like to follow up Commissioner Casterline's remarks by saying that has certainly been, it has a checkered past. And it's gone in many directions, and we discussed many directions during the selection committee meeting. And it might just be, we've seen the new urgent care open at the old dialysis on Pearl, And we may be in a position where we no longer might need that grant or certainly all of that grant to move forward if the entities are determined to come here anyway. So I will certainly welcome more conversation. Thank you.
And it was noted in the last meeting that both the groups, one is already here and the other one is planning on coming. So, you know, that's part of my concern of the deal.
Well, this has been such a convoluted and difficult path to follow. I think we need to look at the whole thing as to whether or not we want to move forward with it at all. We passed a bond issue on it, but we've not sold any of those bonds or done anything with it. So I'm not real sure where we're at, but I think we need to look at this whole thing again.
We can't sell those bonds. You know, we can't sell those bonds. They were for something we aren't going to do. That's off the table.
I would like to get confirmation that that's not possible.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's securities fraud. We can't do that.
Whatever we need to do to dissolve. So do I have a motion?
I move
to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castellano.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Lava.
Aye.